Augmented triads. What are they? How do we use them? And why do they sound like that? For the past few weeks, I've been reading and studying Chopin's 15th Prelude in D-flat major. It's commonly referred to as the Raindrop Prelude, but it says here that Chopin didn't like that, so I'm not going to call it that. There's a lot to love about this piece, and maybe even dislike about it. But if I had to say the one thing that this piece does best, I'd say that it's demonstrating the augmented triad. Even in the context of this piece, there is the augmented triad. There's only one type of this chord found in the entire duration of the piece. If we zoom out and look at the entire piece, we can see that Chopin makes use of almost exclusively major and minor triads as well as dominant seventh chords as the foundation for the harmony. And that's pretty standard for classical music. The reliability of those harmonies cannot be overstated, and this really is the bread and butter of Western music. Dominant chords resolve to major and minor tonics. Augmented chords, generally speaking, are less reliable. However, during this piece's climax, during the most tumultuous moment played at fortissimo, Chopin gives us our one augmented triad. The piece is centered around repeating notes as one of its main motives. Mostly this note is A flat or G sharp, but on a couple occasions the note does change. Here the note B is repeated. It's harmonized as the fifth of an E major triad at first, moving to a G sharp minor triad in first inversion, meaning that the bass and melody are playing the same note. And finally, it resolves down the minor scale to a root position G sharp minor chord, before finding its way to the D sharp augmented triad. The augmented triad in this case functions as just another type of dominant chord. It resolves to G sharp. The dominant seventh chord typically is made up of one diminished triad, the one that's in the key, plus the fifth note of the key. Each of these three types of triads, major, minor, and diminished, occur entirely diatonic. The augmented triad is the one quality of triad that is inherently non-diatonic, meaning that it doesn't appear in a key signature. It only naturally occurs in harmonic minor, which is itself a scale with an augmented interval and an accidental that cannot be accounted for by the key signature. Earlier in the piece, Chopin does use the D-sharp dominant seventh. Here, in the most climactic moment, Chopin delivers a fortissimo D-sharp augmented. Let's take a closer look at how each note moves. The function becomes even clearer when we do that. The note D sharp goes down a fifth to G sharp. That's exactly what the scale degrees are named for, the dominant resolving to the tonic. G, or in this case F double sharp, functions as the leading tone of G sharp. Both the dominant seventh chord and augmented triad have a major third, so they both contain the leading tone. What makes this chord augmented is the note B, the minor third of our key, or third scale degree. And B is the oddball. Typically, the dominant seventh should get the second and fourth scale degree, and those would resolve to the minor third, or the third scale degree, present in the tonic triad. Instead, by keeping that minor third present in the dominant triad, we get relatively less harmonic motion in exchange for a unique harmonic color. Personally, I think this trade-off is more than worth it. B is our significant note in the climax. It is the repeated note, and it's the minor third of the scale that we're in. Additionally, when you harmonize it over the E major chord, you get an extremely stable sound, and then when it's harmonized over the same note, it feels like a 1-5 in E major, with the 5 chord, B, being substituted by this first inversion G sharp minor. However, when we get down the minor scale to G sharp minor, all of that gets contextualized as the 6 chord. And then when we hit D sharp augmented, G sharp becomes solidified as the tonic. The climax is made entirely of triads, and these are carefully chosen to be the most epic and Aeolian sounding possible. It's extremely powerful and extremely well crafted, and a perfect example of how the augmented triad can function just like a diminished triad, or even a dominant 7th chord. So the next time you want to use an augmented triad, consider Chopin's 15th Prelude, and how he only used it once in the entire piece. In general, only using a sound once during your music is a beautiful way to make that moment stand out. And it's not that you're saving that sound for a special moment, but it's that the uniqueness of that sound is what makes the moment so special. I think that this piece, Chopin's 15th Prelude in D-flat major, really demonstrates this idea of special, saving something for a perfect moment, the moment being perfect because you saved something for it. This prelude demonstrates that idea wonderfully. And, the augmented triad functions as a dominant chord. That's cool too, right?